La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear viewers, welcome to this episode of The Muslimah's Voice. Today's discussion centers around a topic that has long been at the intersection of faith and tradition: women's inheritance rights in Islamic law versus cultural practices. In Islamic law or Sharia, women are granted clear and undeniable rights to inherit and own property. However, in many African communities, cultural norms often clash with these principles, leading to confusion and the perpetration of harmful practices. Too often, women are denied their rightful inheritance not because of religious teachings, but due to deeply ingrained cultural beliefs. In this conversation, we will explore the true Islamic teachings on women's inheritance rights, challenge some of the common myths and misconceptions in our cultural context, and discuss how we can collectively work to put an end to harmful practices. Joining me in the studio today are Adia Shakira Oladejog Al-Ghazal, a Chief Nursing Officer at the Directorate of Health Services, Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, Ogun State, and also the Assistant General Secretary of MTA Nigeria. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And also we have Adia Nahima Babalola Sahiba, an educationist and also the principal of Female Quran Memorization School in Nigeria. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You are also welcome to the program.
Thank you.
They will provide insights from both religious and cultural perspectives. Before we dive into the discussion, let us hear the public opinions on the topic.
In Islam, they are, as mothers, as daughters, as sisters, they are entitled to inheritance. And it is spelled out in the Quran what percentage should go to them.
As a Muslim, women are entitled to inheritance. But culturally, there are some cultures that even the women, they are inherited when they are along with whatever property the man leaves behind. But as a Muslim, the men and women, they have some rights. There are ways by which it has been standardized according to the Quran as to how an inheritance is supposed to be shared.
They are human beings too, and they should not be deprived of their. Every human being has rights, either a right or rights. So they should not be denied of any inheritance. The same parents that gave birth to a male also gave birth to the female.
There is no discrimination in Islam, whether you are a man or a woman. But the point there is that the men will always have higher proportion of the inheritance than the women. So there is this, it's like the humanity when you look at it Islamically, but culturally, it's not the best at all because the women are somehow humiliated in most cases when it comes to inheritance.
If you deprive them of their inheritance, it will affect them in future, either in their marriage, their financial life, and every other aspect. So they should be given rights of their inheritance. There's
a culture in Yoruba land that is unfair to distribution of inheritance, through what is referred to as idigi. It means that if a man has 3 or 4 wives, his inheritance is divided into 4 places. Now, a wife who has 1 child, that 1 child gets a quarter of the man's inheritance. And if another woman has 10 children, the 10 children get just as much as 1 child gets. I think that's unfair.
In Igbo land, the one I know a bit, though it's not all Igbos, let's say not majority of them, just very few of them, the ones I know, they used to say that women should not be given, should not be entitled to property like land, house, and all the rest, any kind of inheritance of their father. So that was the olden days anyway. But now they have abolished it.
I think that's an unfair inheritance practice in Yoruba land. And the other one I mentioned about a wife who is childless and is disinherited because of her inability to have a child for her husband, who is now dead.
Welcome back to the studio. We have listened to diverse opinions from the people. If I may start from Adia Shakira Al-Ghazal Sahiba, what are some of the cultural beliefs and myths about women's inheritance, especially within African communities, and how they conflict with Islamic principles?
Just like we have heard people say from home, there are various cultural practices as regards female inheritance that conflicts with the teachings of Islam, which give specific rights to women to inherit, either from their husband, from their father, from their child. Even a mother can inherit, or a sister can inherit from his male sibling. There are various ones. Some of these myths are: one, male primacy in the issue of inheritance. Many African cultures believe that the boy child or the male are the ones that are entitled to inheritance, while the female child does not have so much right to inherit. They believe that the family lineage will be protected by the male, while the woman will go and marry into another family. So based on this belief, they disenfranchise the female child from having inheritance from the family, which is totally against the teachings of Islam. Because in Islam, a child, male or female, has a specific inheritance percentage that they can enjoy from their family's wealth. Another one is that they believe that women do not really need inheritance. In many African cultures, they believe that the woman will marry into another family, and she's expected to be taken care of by the relatives, the members of the family. And in some, they even believe that the woman is part of the property that is supposed to be shared. So they don't really give women that recognition to have an inheritance in the family. Another one is the culture of disinheriting the woman. Most times widows are not seen as entitled to have inheritance from their husbands. They believe that they are supposed to be taken care of by the members of the family. And some are even forced to remarry within the family, even against their wish, just for them to have access to care after the demise of their husband. This is totally against the teachings of Islam, because in the teachings of Islam, a wife, either she is childless or she has children, has specific percentages of her husband's estate or wealth that she can inherit after the demise of the husband. Another myth is the pressure of forfeiting their inheritance. In some cultures in Africa, where the woman have some things that she has inherited, they are pressured to relinquish those inheritance to the male counterparts, either to the brother or uncles or the male counterparts in the family, especially. And coming to Nigeria, there are some cultures in Nigeria too that have these negative myths as regards female inheritance. In some parts of the eastern part of the country, women cannot inherit landed property or estates at all. They believe those things are identities of their family that can only be taken by those that they believe, the men that they believe will protect the name of the family. Another culture in Nigeria also gives male alone. Female do not even have rights to inheritance at all, only the male. And in some cultures, only the eldest son will take all inheritance, and he will now be the one to share to the siblings as he wills. Another one is concerning widows. I've said that earlier. There are some cultures in Nigeria too that the widows are forced to marry within the family, or they will not be given any inheritance. Then, in the northern part of the country, we can say that they practice the Sharia to an extent, to a good extent, but in some localities within that northern part, when a woman is childless, then she does not have the right to inheritance, which is contrary to the belief of Islam or the practice of the Holy Prophet Muhammad that women, either childless or with children, have specific percentages of inheritance.
Jazakumullahu khairan for those thought out points. Hajia Naima Babala Sahiba, what are the rights of women regarding inheritance according to the Islamic Sharia?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Throughout history, women have been regarded powerless and weak. Before the arrival of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a woman was regarded as a man's slave and property. When a man died, women were forced to marry a relative, even against their will, or they were exchanged for money. And there was no religion or nation could change that. There was no law to protect them. But thereafter, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam proclaimed in the name of God that men and women are equal in the sight of Allah. And he also declared that a man does not own his wife. He has no right to sell her or force her into any marriage. The teachings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam raised the status of women as not only being equal to men, but as someone who has freedom of, who is free to develop spiritually, morally, physically, in our own way. And then, according to Islamic Sharia, there are specific shares of inheritance accorded to women. Now, let us look into the inheritance rights of women according to the Quran. In Quran chapter 4, Surah An-Nisa, verse 8, Allah says, "For men is the share of that which parents and near relations leave, and for women is the share of that which parents and near relations leaves. It may be little or much, but a determined share." That is from the Holy Quran. And then going further into Surah An-Nisa, from verses 12 and 13, Allah describes the specific share, the ratio of sharing inheritance among women, be it a mother, a wife, a daughter, and a sister. There are specific shares of inheritance for them. Now, going to these specific shares, as a daughter, she is entitled to half of the property, half of the share of a son. But if she is the only child of the parents, then she gets half of the property, of the parents' property. Then as a wife, she gets 1/8 if the husband has children. But if the husband does not have any children, she's entitled to a quarter of the deceased husband's property. Now, as a mother, my sister said in a discussion earlier that a mother can equally inherit from a late child. As a mother, if she's the only inheritor, if she's the only heir to a child, to the dead child, then she's entitled to 1/3 of the child's property. But if the late child has children, then she's entitled to 1/6 of the property. And then as a sister as well, she can inherit properties from the late siblings. Now, suppose according to the Quran, if she's the only heir to the deceased brother, she gets half of the inheritance. But if there are two or more, then they get 2/3 of the property. That's the ratio of sharing the property according to the Holy Quran chapter 4 verses 12 to 13.
MashaAllah, Sister Naima Babalala Sahiba, you have made extensive points on the topic. Dear viewers, if you are just joining us on today's episode of the Muslimah's Voice, our guest so far has given us insight into the various myths about women's inheritance in Africa, especially narrowed down to Nigeria. We have also discussed the Islamic perspective on women's inheritance. Joining us via live call is Barrister Rukoya Mustafa, a legal practitioner and a notary public. Sister Rukoya Mustafa Sahiba, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you for joining us on the program, Barrister Rukoya Mustafa Sahiba. What are the common grounds between Sharia and cultural practices?
There are common grounds between the Sharia law and most cultural beliefs on women's rights to inheritance and property rights. The Holy Quran in Surah An-Nisa, verses 8, 12 to 13, 177 and 32, made it clear that women have the right to inheritance and even provides for their share in a deceased property, depending on the relationship with the deceased. Verse 32 of the same surah gives women the right to own and manage property independently and also protects women's property from seizures and confiscation. For clarity, verse 8 of Surah An-Nisa provides thus: for men is a share of that which parents and near relations leave, and for women is a share of that which parents and near relations leave, whether it be little or much, a determined share. Verse 12 of the same surah provides: Allah commands you concerning your children, a male shall have as much as the share of two females, but if there be females only, numbering more than two, they shall have 2/3 of what the deceased leave. Verse 13 provides as follows: and you shall have half of that which your wives leave, if they have no child. But if they have a child, then you shall have 1/4 of that which they leave, after the payment of any bequest you may have bequeathed or of death. And they shall have 1/4 of that which you leave, after the payment of any bequest you may have bequeathed or of death. Also, verse 33 provides: and covet not that whereby Allah has made some of you excel others. Men shall have a share of that which they have earned, and women a share of that which they have earned. From the above verses of the Holy Quran, women's rights to inheritance and ownership of property is protected under Islamic law. Coming down to culture, many African societies traditionally recognize women's rights to inheritance and property ownership. The Ashanti women in Ghana have the right to own and inherit property. The Yoruba culture in Nigeria gives women the right to inherit property, own property, manage property, and can dispose same. For instance, in the 12th century, Olori Moremi Ajasoro of Western Nigeria owned and managed extensive property during her reign. So also was Queen Amina of Zaria of Northern Nigeria, who reigned between 1533 to 1610. She owned vast tracts of land, including agricultural fields and grazing areas. She also inherited the kingdom's wealth and throne after the death of her brother. Although there are some cultures in the eastern part of Nigeria that prohibits women from inheritance, such cultures have been held to be repugnant, not in consonance with natural justice, equity, and good conscience by the Supreme Court of Nigeria in the case of Anekwe and Another versus Nweke, and also by Section 42 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is the grand norm. Section 43 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria provides that every citizen of Nigeria have the right to acquire and own immovable property anywhere in Nigeria. Other African cultures that recognizes the rights of women to inheritance and ownership of property is the Zulu culture in South Africa, Minangkabau culture in Tanzania, and Bateke culture in Congo, and a host of other cultures. Therefore, most cultures have a common ground with Islamic law and principle on the right of women to inheritance and ownership of property. It is not only Islam that gives rights to women to inherit and own property. We have many cultures that are in tandem with the provisions of the Sharia as regards inheritance and ownership of property. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakumullahu khairan, Barrister Ruqayyah Mustafa, Sahiba, for those extensive points being raised. We have just listened to our dear sister Ruqayyah Mustafa Sahiba on the common ground between Islamic Sharia and the cultural practices. If I may start with you, Sister Nahima Babalala Sahiba, with the clear injunctions of the Holy Quran, why do people still deny women their rights to inheritance, and how can we change these harmful practices?
Jazakallah khairan, dear sister. Despite the clear injunctions from the Holy Quran, women's inheritance are often denied due to some factors. Some of these factors include cultural and social factors, which include the patriarchal tradition, misinterpretation of Islamic teachings, then tribal and customary laws conflicting with Islamic teachings. And then we have the economic factors. These economic factors include poverty. You know, when a family is poverty-stricken, you know, there is the tendency for them to compete over the inheritance left by their late sibling or whatever. And then in that way, the woman is denied a rightful inheritance. And then we also have economic dependence. Most of the time, the woman depends on the relatives for sustenance. So in such a situation, they will not want to give her with the belief that, after all, they've been the one catering for her before. So they want to retain the inheritance to themselves. And then we have lack of education. Most of these people believe that women does not have enough education to handle inheritance. And as such, they believe they as men are better off in that aspect. And then we have the social pressures. Under the social pressure, we have family dynamics where male-dominated decision prevails. So whether you like it or not, they will never grant the woman a rightful inheritance. And then we also have pressure from in-laws. Women most of the time, they face opposition from in-laws because they believe she too is part of the property that the deceased family member left behind. So they will not want to grant her that. And then if they see a woman asserting for inheritance as being disobedient or being a shameful person, you know. And then there's the community expectations. Most of the time, the community believes that a woman should be under they should be under the protection of the in-laws after the demise of her husband. And as such, they will not like it that she would demand for a rightful inheritance. So the social norms too, community pressure for women is also part of the factors that contributes to the denial of women of their rightful inheritance. And then we have education and awareness. What we do in this case is that we should emphasize on Islamic education regarding the rights of inheritance of women. And then we should also organize community workshops that will sensitize women on their rights to inheritance. Then we can also make use of the social media outlets to create awareness for women on their rights to inheritance as well. Then we also have community engagement. If we engage the community leaders, the elderly, the just elderly among the community should also be involved to stand up for the rights of women when it comes to their rightful inheritance. Then there should also be family discussions. It can be during dinner or whatever, dinner time. They should use those opportunities to educate women on their rights to inheritance. And then we can also involve support groups.
Jazakumullahu khairan, dear sister. Sister Shakira Sahiba, how can we amplify the voices and stories of women who are being denied their inheritance rights?
Jazakumullah khairan. The voice of women whose inheritance rights have been denied can be amplified through various strategies, some of which are combining advocacy with community involvement and legal engagement, including media engagement as well. Just like my sister has said earlier, we can utilize the media, both the social and the traditional media, to educate people, not only the women, to know their rights, and for also the men and the generality of the public to know that women indeed have a right to inheritance. By so doing, gradually, the voice of those that have been oppressed will be heard. Then another strategy is community involvement, where women groups can come together to provide support for those that are denied their inheritance right. They can give psychological support, they can give even legal support to them, and non-governmental organizations can also come together to fight for the rights of women whose inheritance rights were denied. Another strategy is educational programs, which I think is very, very important. Some of these practices are due to ignorance on the part of those that are perpetrating such activities. So if there is enough education to the public about inheritance rights of women, then gradually these myths and harmful cultural practices against inheritance of women will be addressed. So another strategy is to recognize women who have successfully fought for their rights and have achieved success. By so doing, it will inspire others to also follow suit.
Jazakumullahu khairan, ahsan al-jaza. Viewers at home, let's listen to the guidance of the head of Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat worldwide, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, may Allah be his helper, on the topic women's inheritance rights in Islam.
In the recent past, that non-Muslim women have been granted the right to inherit. Islam granted women the right to inheritance more than 1,400 years ago. Moreover, at a time when girls were generally deprived of education, Islam championed their right to learning and categorically stated that every girl should be provided education and the means to better herself. Islam has even guided us on the smallest matters and turned our attention towards true equality in all matters.
Welcome back. We have listened to the profound insights given by the head of Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat worldwide. Sister Naima Sahiba, what are your final thoughts on the topic?
Jazakallah khairan, dear sister. From all we have been discussing all along, we can see that Islam gives specific rights, inheritance rights to women as a mother, daughter, wife, and sister. So, and for us to have a just society, we need to amplify the voices of women who have been oppressed, and then we intensify the teachings of Islam. We should grant more education to women and the general public on the directive of the Quran on the rights of women as regards inheritance.
Jazakumullah khairan, Sister Naima Sahiba. Sister Shakira Sahiba, what are your advice for people at home?
Jazakumullah khairan. My advice to people at home is that just like we have said from the beginning of the program till this moment, we can see the beautiful teachings of Islam as regards inheritance rights. So let us all try to embrace this educate ourselves more, both male and female, and let us utilize this so as to have a equitable, peaceful, and just environment and society at large.
Jazakumullah to our guests for these enlightening conversations. In today's discussion, we've delved into the complex relationship between Islamic law and cultural beliefs regarding women's inheritance and property rights. According to Sharia, women are entitled to inherit property with clear guidance established in the Quran to protect their rights. However, in many African communities, these religious teachings are often overshadowed by cultural norms that restrict or deny women access to their inheritance due to harmful myths and misconceptions that persist in these societies. While there is some common ground between cultural practices and Islamic values, such as the importance of family and community, this should never be used as a justification to deny women their legal and religious rights. Finally, we emphasize the importance of amplifying women's voices, especially those who are fighting for their rightful inheritance. By sharing their stories and advocating for legal reform, we can help shift mindsets and create lasting change in our communities. Dear viewers, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Muslimah's Voice. For questions, comments, or inquiries, kindly email us on africa@mta.tv. Until next time, when we bring to you more insightful and interesting topics, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah.